Hi guys, Dan here with Fluid Solutions. I'm here to talk to you today about peristaltic pump filling. It's something I've been sold 100 of these in my years, over the last couple decades. And this is something near and dear to my heart because it offers a lot of advantages for liquid filling. But it's also something that I take very seriously about configuring it for the right solution, because these things are typically right out of the gate geared toward water-thin liquids and filling very accurately. But there are some things you need to know about peristaltic filling. And let me start with basically how do they work? What is peristaltic filling? If you imagine the way if you drink from a garden hose upside down and your throat constricts to move the product, this system right here turns the motor in here turns the pump head, and the rollers squeeze or occlude the tubing to force liquid from one side to the other. And that's how you're metering the liquid through the hose. Okay, much the same way a snake would digest a small rodent or a small child once it gets it in its throat. Okay, it's going to move it by constricting and expanding those rings. So as the rollers move, it constricts the liquid in the tubing and forces it out. And these systems can be used to run real thin liquids like water. They even have versions available that'll move things like concrete, peanut butter. Okay, but there's no one peristaltic filler that's going to do an entire range of sizes and viscosities, so it's important to configure this correctly. So let's start with the components. What makes up a peristaltic system? So we've got the drive, which basically is, in this case, the controls and the motor that drives the pump are all built into one housing. In some cases, in some configurations, you'll have a separate controller, a separate motor, and then you'll have the pump head. In a lot of cases, this pump head is a single tube pump head. There are pump heads available that'll have multiple channels. You can have up to 24 channels. Or in some cases with thicker liquids, the answer is to have several pump heads on their own individual motors. We can tailor that to what your specific needs are. So once you have this part designed for the tubing size you need to run, and the viscosities you need to run, and the speeds you need to run, and think of like RPMs of the motor and everything like that. Once we know that, then we figure out what tubing works best for your products. So if you're filling things like essential oils, some of those essential oils are very caustic, very corrosive. I've actually seen people send in samples. I've done a sample test and we've melted tubing. It's actually kind of fun to watch what happens. Cracks, swells, melts, dissolves, and then you find that tubing, which this works for, this one tubing might work for 90% of the products, and another tube works for 10% of the products. Maybe that's the answer, is to have more than one formulation of tubing. But it's very easy to get right. It's also very easy to purchase this without knowing it and get the wrong thing if you don't exchange all the information about all the products you're going to run, how fast you want to run them, and how thick they are. What we do here at Fluid is we test it. We're like, please send us your product. Send us some of your bottles. We'll actually test fill to determine what tubing size works best. And with a broad mix of your, say, essential oils, give us some of the more caustic ones, we can actually do a soak test with tubing to determine what the best mix is for you. And we also apply that to your product mix. What is your production schedule? Are you running 200 different products in the course of a month? Because maybe the answer for you is not to buy 3 or 4 packs of 100 feet of tubing. Maybe the right answer for you is to buy 500-foot rolls of tubing and have them dedicated. So like in an essential oil business, you might have a 4-head unit with 4 hoses dedicated to lavender and 4 hoses dedicated to orange and 4 heads dedicated to lavender skunk and 1 head dedicated to something that you very rarely run. So why set up 4 hoses if you're only going to run that one product and you're going to run maybe 200 bottles one day a month? So this is where it can be configured to what you actually need. The beautiful thing about peristaltic filling is that from a standpoint of setup and cross-contamination, no system that you can find is going to be as easy to prevent cross-contamination and get out the door, get it set up to where you're tweaked in and you're running. I can change over the tubing, prime it, and be ready to run the next production run typically in 2 minutes. Once you're trained, you'll be able to do it in 2 minutes. A novice, maybe 5, but it's not hard. And you add more fill heads, that could take you a little bit longer, but once you're done, let's say I've got 4 fill heads running lavender, I can take all 4 hoses, all 4 nozzles, fittings, I can flush them with mineral oil or whatever, and I can hang them up, labeled, so the next time I'm running lavender, I pull those out and put them back on. So there's no chance of cross-contaminating my lemon essence with my lavender essence or whatever. If you've got a blend, you want that to be a blend that you made on purpose, not by mistake because you mixed 2 products together. And when you're thinking about peristaltic pump filling, there's always a little bit of a compromise because bigger hose means you can fill faster, but you're not going to be as accurate. As I said earlier, peristaltic pump filling can be one of the most accurate filling methods known to man. But if I'm using hose this size, and I'm filling this 30 ml bottle with hose this size, I'm going to run a little slower and longer to get that accuracy, but it's going to be as accurate as you can get. I've even got hoses that are smaller than that, where we can fill down to a fraction of a milliliter. But if I'm trying to do that into a 30 milliliter bottle, it could take a while. So if I go to something larger, like this size, I can fill it faster. But if you think of the difference in accuracy as being the difference in the ID of the tube compared to the space between the rollers, because you're getting pulses of liquid as this is pushing liquid, right? So where that stops in terms of where the hose is when it expands, when it is contracted and colluted, that's where you can lose a little bit of accuracy. So the bigger the hose, you're going to compromise accuracy. The smaller the hose, you're going to compromise speed. So if you were filling a teaspoon from a garden hose, you'd want to run that down real small. Maybe put your thumb over the end so it's just a dribble, okay? And with a really tiny hose, you can do that. You can fill more accurately than just about any other filling method that is offered, but it takes you forever. So let us help you figure out the best fit for the application. We'll take into account budget, speeds that are needed, and what accuracy you need. Some of the products that our customers fill with peristaltic fillers are some of the most expensive products on the market. So we take that as seriously as you do. And if you're filling products that aren't as expensive and you can compromise on the accuracy a little bit, you'll fill them faster. But those that are truly high dollar ingredients, you want to maximize your profit, minimize your waste. The way to do it is to use a peristaltic filler and run it slower, maybe more heads to get the production rate that you need. So I want to talk to you about understanding the performance of peristaltic pump filling, because if you think it's a one answer, a single answer to every kind of viscosity, it's not created for that. If someone's telling you that they have a one-stop solution that'll do everything under the sun, it can be configured. I can configure a peristaltic pump to do a lot of different things, but it'll be a lot of different pump heads. It'll be a lot of different tubing. It'll be a lot of different drives, because I may need a larger torque for removing a thick product. I know I will, okay? So when it comes to understanding the physics of it and how it's gonna work, this is where viscosity is a very key element to peristaltic. So consider the phrases like water thin. If somebody says water thin, centipoise 1.0, okay? There's thinner, okay? Like paint thinner is thinner than water, okay? But milk is actually thicker. Blood is thicker. Okay, all these things that are slightly thicker than water are not water thin, and those very little variations in viscosity affect a peristaltic unlike most other filling methods. So you have to pay particularly close attention to every single viscosity rating that you get for each product. Just your edible oils, for instance, like things you would use in CBD oil. Some of those products are just too thick to run through this tubing with this pump head and this drive because you need more torque to move it. Or you're running it in the upper Midwest of the United States and the edible oil is warm in the summer and it's colder in the plant in the winter. It's thicker. Okay, so what you bought in the summer and worked fine might not work in the winter. So let's test it in a refrigerated environment to make sure that you're going to get performance year-round before you take delivery of that machine. So when you're considering a peristaltic pump filler, also consider the upgradability. Think about the flexibility. So when I'm going to sell a system like this, I'm going to put together a package that you can use as a tabletop system. You can use as a tabletop system today, and tomorrow we can provide an automation package. And once you have the whole thing working automatically, you can even take this offline and take it back over to a table for a small production run that day. And then move it back over here for automatic run the next day or at the end of the day. It's a very versatile system, very easy not only to expand with multiple components for more fill heads and more capacity, but also for mixed automation, switching out to suit your production needs. This is a great component right here, this drive and this pump head. I've used these for dozens and dozens of applications, and there are other components I've used equally, okay, that do a great job, but you can go out online, you can go to Amazon probably and a lot of other online sellers, and they can sell you components. But I caution you, whether you buy from us or buy from somebody else, make sure you partner with somebody who's willing to take your goals and objectives, all your dreams, listen to your story and all the different products that you are running and want to run, and come up with a solution that fits you. Because I can sell you something and say, oh yeah, that will work. That can work. Oh yeah, that tubing, that can work with your product. But that doesn't mean that they're taking ownership of your success. So we appreciate you watching. If you found this useful, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. And we'll see you in the next video.